We are back. We are back at it at week number 3. Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, here we go. Let's go to my all matches recap of week number 2. As you guys were aware, the game ball was given out, and it goes to, without a doubt, a what the fuck performance. David Sutton, 170 to Rob Coffey's 118. After Thursday night, everybody thought this was going to look ugly, and then out of nowhere, the A.J. Brown injury comes in, and Sutton himself comes in before the games and is just like, what the fuck can I even do? And everything just clicked, everything worked out, and he evens his record out to 1-1. And again, I just want to give a shout out to Mr. David Sutton because this guy is literally the fantasy undertaker. Every time you want to bury this dude, because I gotta be once I heard T. Higgins out, once I heard A.J. Brown out for an extended period of time, I would just thought, dude, this is a lost season. This looks really, really bad. Nope. You can't bury the guy. I for now on, will not say anything negative until I know for a fact he's dead. Okay? Fantasy-wise. My best friend, of course, he's not dead. One of the most interesting matchups, the Drake London touchdown sealed Patrick's fate, and Harsh wind up with a W, only putting up 94 points, by the way, but you'll take the victory any way you can. Speaking of teams that got the injury bug, the Jonathan J. Fresh Ahern team is hurting very, very bad, and Paul took very big advantage of that, putting up 123 points. The LSU boys were firing on all cylinders as well. We'll talk more about that team once I get into your matchup breakdown in a second, Paul. On the ground, Kings, Andre Jones is the number 1 seed as he goes to 2-0, putting up 109 versus the Matica team that only put up 89 points. How did this happen? The flexes aren't that good. I mean, I'm not going to tell you any shape or form what else could have been the case, but with Jordan Love being out and George Pickens going against Patrick Surtain Jr., or the second, I don't even remember. Yeah, points are going to be hard to come by in that one. This has happened, and I called it. Big Mesh getting his first victory. And it happened, putting up 100 points. The Alan Williams team, this is the team that I suspected was going to happen. The upside was not here, and the floor didn't even hit, which is why this was such a low outcome performance. And then we got to give the man his props. A team I was also not big on yet again, the David Krier team putting up 137 points versus mine, 115. And give the man some props, give him his credit. I'll give credit to where credit is due. Well done. Well done. That was the recap, but the recap also has to transition into the waiver wire recap, which I'm going to get into after this statement as I take a sip of this delicious coffee. Some people overcame injuries and others did not. And then I think this waiver wire week was a lot more interesting than the previous week. Week 1 last week, I didn't really find anything that amusing at all. I mean, there were some speculation guys. There's still a lot of speculation guys, but there were a lot more guys that were more interesting to bid on this week for sure. And then I'm going to get into every single bid, how I feel like things are going to break down because there's a lot of openings now, thanks to the injuries that piled up in week number 2. All right, guys. Here it comes. The waiver wire recap of week number 2. This week really had myself diving into a lot of film. I probably switched up my bids about a million times. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I really started to think, okay, there's a lot of speculation, but that's what waiver wires are. It's never a sure thing. It's just a matter of who wants it more. And I think this case was evident in that discussion. Now, okay, so for those of you that are wondering, I'm going to start with the lowest bid guys and the highest bid guys and how I think that's going to pan out. Giving out grades. The grades I'm going to give if I like it or not are how much you spent on it, if your team was in need of that, or if it's a speculation upside play. There's a lot that I'm kind of going in with this in particular. By the way, if you go to the boss number 2 chat feature and it says the transactions have been posted, that's where you can check all the other bids. I actually did not know that until last week. I used to think I could only view it on desktop, but if you go on desktop, they don't post everything. The lowest bid guy was Jonathan Mingo at $2. How do I grade this? This is just like an F. I don't want anything to do with Jonathan Mingo. I understand the Carolina passing attack with Andy Dalton might be sustainable, but Jonathan Mingo is not even starting. Um, the only thing you could look to this is saying, oh, second team offense was Andy Dalton, second team offense Jonathan Mingo, so they have some sort of rapport. But even so, I'm not excited about this offense at all. Allen is the most receiver needy team in the entire league. He will not trade for a wide receiver. He will hope that he strikes gold, and that's going to be his plan. And you can say, well, what if he's 1-7? He doesn't care. He's going to go down with the ship. I don't know if it's prideful or just stubbornness, but that's who he is, and he thinks he can strike gold with Jonathan Mingo. The answer is no on that. A guy I think he might be okay with as far as a 7 point a week guy is Noah Brown. Noah Brown, I think, is probably going to be the wide receiver 2 in Washington. He played limited snaps because he's getting comfortable, but he led the team in receiving yards, I'm pretty sure, last week. He caught 3 catches, 56 yards. By default, I think he's the second best receiver here. For $3 for Noah Brown, I will actually give this a solid B. I think that Washington is going to have to throw a lot. The only thing that I think is going to be really hard to tell with the Washington offense is who's going to be the guy that's going to extend vertically down the field. I don't know if they want to use McLaurin in that way. I think De'Ami Brown got the first crack at it, but let's be honest, he can't do that all the time. I don't know if Jaden Daniels and the long ball will be part of this offense a lot, but as far as possession receiver guys, I think him and McLaurin might be solid. As far as targets, I think he will earn a decent amount of targets. I do think that it's going to be a mix of McLaurin. Both running backs will be heavily involved in the passing game as far as target concern is concerned. Zach Ertz still looks pretty solid out there as a security blanket type of guy. I think we all want to see Ben Sinnott, but I actually give this a solid B. In games where you think that they're going to be behind, I think that he might be startable for Allen's team specifically, but uh, I don't know if you'll get Noah Brown wide receiver 2 status from Houston. I think that offense is tailor made to make guys look really, really good. I don't think we're going to see that. Like, if you thought you were getting the floor, like when Noah Brown was the second option in Houston, he was unstoppable. Like, I remember because I had him last year. So, just throwing that out there. Next, when we go, Geno Smith was not bid on, but Patrick. I give this bid an official B plus. I think that Geno with, by the way, Geno Smith a bid is a B plus because of the team need for Patrick, and I think as long as Kenneth Walker is out, this team is going to have to throw a shit ton of passes. And I really like Geno Smith in this Ryan Grubb offense. That is a great pickup. You can actually start him week in and week out confidently without Kenneth Walker. If Walker is there, though, I think they want to lean on him a little bit more. Next bids. Tutu Atwell by Johnny dropping Demario Douglas, and Allen was the other one with $2 bid. Johnny's going to need all the depth help he can get. I want to talk about the Rams wide receiver core for a second because they become very, very, very interesting now. Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Whittington, and now Tutu Atwell is back into the mix. Tutu Atwell lost his job in the training camp and in the preseason. He was officially running with the second team with Jordan Whittington. Now, with Kupp gone now, things get very, very interesting because by default, one of these guys is probably going to hit, and I think the safest bet would be Demarcus Robinson, but here's my issue. I liked Demarcus Robinson as the number 2 option when he was operating behind Puka or Cooper Kupp. And I don't know how that's going to work out, but here's what I do know. This line is horrible, number 1. Kyren Williams is looking very inefficient yet again, and I think that this team is going to be behind a ton. So there's going to be a shit ton of passing volume. That's a fact. The guy that I think now, Johnny, if you're listening to this, is going to be biased heavy approach by me, and I'm sorry. The minute Cooper Kupp went out in the second half, the guy who stepped into the slot role the most was Jordan Whittington. Now, with that being said, I think Whittington becomes the most interesting, and he has the highest upside out of all of these guys because we know what Demarcus Robinson is as a number one on a team. It's not very pretty. Tyler Johnson ain't it. If there's a guy I think that's gonna not be a winner in this receiving core, it's Tyler Johnson. Tutu Atwell, we saw at least had flashes with Stafford last year. I think he had maybe 2, maybe 3 games. My bet is that I think he wins out the Tyler Johnson game. I don't think Tyler Johnson does anything special. Whittington is probably my favorite, though, because he's going to be the one who plays the slot role, and Matt Stafford loves who's playing in the slot. But what do I give this bet at a Tutu Atwell? I'm going to say a C. I don't hate it. I don't love it. But bottom line is he's going to be out on the field. And if Matt Stafford stays healthy, he's probably going to chuck it 30-plus times a game. Another bid by Johnny for $6, Mike Gesicki and Tyler Conklin. Well, Mike Gesicki used to be a guy who was hyped up a lot in Miami, and then he's forgotten about in New England. And now Mike Gesicki should have had 2 double-digit fantasy point weeks. He's playing with Joe Burrow. Finally, we have seen it's been a while, but Joe Burrow actually looks like he has a decent tight end that he can rely on. We tried the CJ Uzomah experiment. That sucked. Drew Sample and the other white guy that they still run, Tanner Hudson. I don't remember if that's him or not. Those guys didn't fucking pan out. Irv Smith was hyped up, and now he's out of the league. Yeah. Mike Gesicki looks pretty good, but I also think he looks pretty good for the following reasons. No T. Higgins. Yoshivas just looks like a guy who's just a red zone guy at this point. He doesn't look like he can operate as a number 2 wide receiver in the NFL. And for whatever reason, they don't like Jermaine Burton. I think it's an attitude issue or something. So I think he's making best of his opportunity. But we'll see. We shall see with Mike Gesicki moving forward. Johnny, I don't even remember who your starting tight end was. Oh, it's Evan Ingram. Yeah. You know what? As a plug and play guy with Mike Gesicki, just ride it out. I'll give you a C plus. It's just I can't get excited about Mike Gesicki, but the opportunity is there, and he's had 2 solid weeks in a row. Next highest bid was $15 for Samaje Perine. Okay, so the Kansas City backs are all going to get talked about simultaneously for obvious reasons. Pacheco might be done for the year, so somebody's going to have to step up. And the guys that were bid on were Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, Carson Steele, and Kareem Hunt. I think I said Kareem. Oh, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm sorry, I said Kareem Hunt twice. Perine. If there is one guy that I think probably has the best fit in this offense, it's probably him. For $15, but I just don't know if he's going to get that opportunity. Perine is a guy that catches a lot of balls, and I think he has the safest floor out of all these guys, and he's already on the roster, but he's still trying to get acclimated to the roster. The fact that he only went for $15, I think, is a very good steal. Huh, no pun intended. But I don't know if he'll get the goal line work. I do think, though, if they sit in shotgun and pass protection, I think he's going to be out there a ton. As far as all the Chiefs backs that were bid on for price, I'm actually going to give this one an A+. Why? I don't think it's a guarantee that he works out. But for what the Kansas City Chiefs want to do and what they're good at, I think he's the guy who's probably going to be on the field a ton. For now. Next up was Jalen Naylor for $19. Next closest offer was $8 by me and Coffey for $6. Jalen Naylor is a good football player. And I think that Jalen Naylor will be very, very startable as long as one of Jefferson or Jordan Addison is going to be out. This guy was making plays in the preseason, and you could immediately tell right away this guy is an NFL caliber wide receiver. So with that being said, David Krier, $19 for Jalen Naylor. How do I feel about it? I love this pickup. I'm going to give it a solid B+. David, you're making a lot of good moves that I like, and I know you don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. the guy who might actually win out in the whole Chiefs situation, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, went for $23. I'm surprised that there were two other offers. David, you had two offers on this guy, so that means you probably dropped somebody, and Andre had $1 bid on him. $23 for CEH. He's not expected to come back until week 5, but we saw last year Pacheco was out, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a solid floor play as an RB2. And I do think if Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, and Kareem Hunt don't figure out shit, they might just have to resort back to using him yet again in the lead back role in this offense. He'll be inefficient, but he'll get volume. My only concern is, though, I don't think that you can hold on to him for 3 more weeks. I think he's going to be cut. I don't expect Dave, because you can't put him on an IR or an NA spot. He's kind of in that weird tag that it means nothing. Like, that kind of sucks that you have to hold on to him for that long. I'm literally just going to give a C, because when he's on the field, that's the performance that you're going to get. Next up, Jauan Jennings goes for $23 to me. Patrick was at $20. Krier at $12. And I guess I did it. Oh, because I needed to drop somebody. That was my backup plan. Jauan Jennings for $23. In my opinion, out of all the receivers that were bid on, I think this is the guy who is the ultimate winner here. Look, bottom line is this. I went heavy on Jauan Jennings for numerous amount of reasons. Super Bowl, for one, I think everybody remembers that he should have been the MVP if the Niners did win that game. I also think that Deebo Samuel is injury prone. Christian McCaffrey is probably going to be out for an extended period of time, as we all know. And Brandon Ayuk is rusty. Who is the one guy who's been in this season who is not that rusty? It's him. I actually do think that if you liked, I think the Shanahan system, is plug-and-play guy. He's a guy who's really good. Ricky Pearsall is still hurt. There's so many other things. Call me biased, but I do think that this guy can put up some really, really good numbers. I can't go A+, but I'm going to give a solid B for this because I do think that he's going to be heavily involved. And listen, the Deebo injury is going to be long-term. He's going to be placed on IR. It's a calf strain, and they looked at McCaffrey, and they realized that it was a lot more serious. This one pissed me off. Donta Foreman goes to Coffey for $29. David bid on $25. I did $9. Funny story, I actually had a bid on for him for $37, and I came to the realization I don't want this dinosaur on my team anymore. He did win me a championship, though. So I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Donta Foreman. The definition of Donta Foreman is he is a game script dependent RB3. I can't go as high as RB2. No fucking way. Last week was very interesting because Jerome Ford got the usage in week 1, and then Foreman gets the start. This guy goes from a best ball lottery ticket in July because everybody was so down on Nick Chubb, and I think people should still be down on Nick Chubb. So people are starting to say, okay, well, what the fuck's going to happen here? Like, Donta Foreman could be a lottery ticket because we always see what he does. He starts third in the depth chart, and then injuries happen, and then he has at least one game where he's going to score 1 or 2 touchdowns. It's the Donta Foreman circle of life. Then he gets cut by the Browns in August. Nobody signs him, so he's on the practice squad. Jerome Ford beat reporters come out and say this guy's going to be great. Foreman didn't play week 1. He's active week 2, and he gets some carries. By the way, he didn't look good on those carries, but he had more carries than Ford. Ford played more snaps. Ford looks like a guy that is going to be, it might be a tip of the hat. If the Browns are going to be up, it's going to be Foreman. If they're down, it might be Ford. And if that's the case, they play the Giants this week. From a weekly standpoint, it's not a bad move, Coffey. But long-term, I still have my doubts because this is the guy that couldn't beat out Jerome Ford. So, yeah, I'm being biased. Yeah, I'm being salty, I guess, if you want. But I can't get confident long-term in Donta Foreman. I think this is a guy that will pop off here and there. But I also do expect that the Browns are going to have to do something different with their playbook if Watson can get it together. But because of the matchup coming up this week, I'm going to give that bid a C+ because it is the Giants, and he probably might score this week. $69 for Kareem Hunt. Okay, I officially have the one bid that I hate the most, and it's this one. Way to burn all your fab within week 2, Alan. This is garbage. This guy, look, I understand that he came back last year from the Browns and he had like maybe 2. I don't even want to call it good games. They were literally like serviceable games. Look, this might be Leonard Fournette on the Bills last year, where everybody thought he was going to be good and he just never played. I can't get behind this. This is an F. Carson Steele goes for $85. I looked at the bids. Allen was the second highest with 71. Then it was Andre with 69, Johnny with 42, myself with 37, and Patrick with 21. Okay, Harsh. Get ready for this take. We might be looking at something where the backs that the Chiefs signed look like they play certain roles. I'm looking at it like this: Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, because those were the 2 guys we knew for a fact were going to rotate roles. And I think Carson Steele was the primary backup to Kareem Hunt, and I think that Samaje Perine was eventually going to play in that Jerick McKinnon role. If the Chiefs are up, I do think that Carson Steele will probably get the bulk of the carries, and he might be the red zone guy. Here's the problem. I don't know if this guy's any good. So you're banking on the opportunity, not the talent. He's pretty much a fullback running. Somebody said long-haired Peyton Hillis because Peyton Hillis played on the Chiefs too, which is kind of funny. And I get the comparisons, and it's hilarious just kind of even thinking about that. So, Nick, you got to make a stance. How do I feel about $85 being bid on Carson Steele? Well, I went as far as 37. I said to myself, listen, at the end of the day, this could just be an ugly committee. And I don't think 3 guys will be rotated in. I think it's going to be 2. But I don't know if he's going to keep onto this gig long term. I think it's a great story. We've seen random-ass running backs pop off out of nowhere. Sam Congato on the Packers, James Starks on the Packers, just to name a few. Like, those are the random-ass guys that I think about that come out of nowhere, and you're just like, what the fuck? Philip Lindsay, an undrafted guy who, made some sparks for, like, 2 years. There's so many guys that you can go, and the Chiefs do put up a lot of points. My thing is this, though. Overall, I think that the Chiefs are going to have to lean a lot on their passing attack. Rashee Rice just might break every catching record in this season. And Xavier Worthy, I think, are the main beneficiaries, to be honest. I don't know if I really like Carson Steele as a talent, opportunity-wise. Okay. So, and I don't even, like, Harsh, I know you're, like, trying out. You actually don't even have that bad of running back depth right now. I mean, granted, they're all, like, RB3s, but my grade for this for $85, though, I got to go a C. The way Carson Steele beats you is if you say to yourself, this guy's just going to plod into the end zone. But I don't think he's going to have a great floor. Like, if this guy doesn't score a touchdown, he's getting you 6 points. That's the way I feel about it. Well, that was my waiver wire recap. I think I covered everything. Let me know what you guys think. So it's interesting because I could have gone a lot of matchups that I could have put at this first opener for this podcast. And this one I think is the one I'm going to go with, because I do think that one team laid a dud week 1 and then just had a ridiculous outburst. And now we have to decide which team is going to show up. And then the next team that I am going to look at is a team that, despite being 1-1, is playing like an 0-2 team, but they have made some interesting moves nonetheless. I am going with the return of the King David Sutton versus Harsh. David, I am going to respect your wishes and not tell him who I think would outproduce or what I would recommend. I know you don't like that, because there's a lot of, like, gross things here on the starting roster that you're going to play. And I will keep my mouth shut. I will not tell him what to do. I am going to read it as it is right now. I am recording this at 5:27 on a Wednesday, keep in mind. And with that being said, well, I'm going to give it to him straight. Kyler Murray against Detroit versus Kirk Cousins against Kansas City. Kyler Murray. DK Metcalf versus Miami, Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Detroit, taking on Jamar Chase against Washington, and Malik Neighbors against Cleveland. Okay. If there is one area where I think Harsh might take advantage, it's this one. We talk about DK Metcalf, and last week I said that he was probably not going to have a great game because he's matched up against Christian Gonzalez. Now, if you look at the box score, you might say to yourself, oh my God, he did it. He did not, and I'll explain why. I watched a lot of film on that game, and the Ryan Grubb offense was in full force because Kenneth Walker wasn't in, and New England played a lot of deep zone coverage. Now, the touchdown was a zone beater, and it was not against Christian Gonzalez. The Ryan Grubb concept is really, really interesting because they stack two receivers to the same side, and they both do like what's almost like, if you remember in Madden, it's like that fork route where the outside guy goes inside, and then the inside guy goes outside, creating almost like a pick, but it's legal. And it's a great zone beater because it gets both of the defenders confused. They both went on the inside, and guess who was wide open on the outside? DK Metcalf. And that was his big play. The other thing with this Ryan Grubb offense against zone coverage that we saw, he has a play that is like, Ryan Grubb must have played a lot of Madden growing up. And the reason why I'm saying this is because every first down and third down play was they would stack three receivers to one side and isolate another guy. And the guy who's isolated would run a drag route, right, while everybody else would clear out that drag route to create open space. And that's where DK Metcalf really had a lot of shine. And Jake Bobo played that role a lot as well. So against zone, we saw DK Metcalf have a really good game. And we also saw Jackson Smith and Jigba have a really good game against a team that primarily played a lot of zone coverage. When they played Denver, Denver actually bought a lot of heat, and they played a lot of man because Surtain was lined up, and Lockett was the one who had a good game. So if we're noticing a little bit of a trend, it's that. Granted, it's only a 2-game sample size. Jalen Ramsey has not shadowed in a while. I could also see DK Metcalf and Jalen Ramsey getting in a fight because that has happened in the past with them. Yeah. So what do I think is going to happen? I don't know. Am I afraid of this matchup? Probably not. Jalen Ramsey has not had to shadow anybody because they haven't played a team with a true number one wide receiver, at least at this stage in their career. We've got to talk about the elephant in the room, Marvin Harrison Jr. Week 1, Twitter is clowning him for running the slowest speed and whatnot. He's getting clowned all over Twitter. And somebody had tweeted out, the Marvin Harrison Jr. running 16 miles per hour is the same thing as Jamar Chase can't catch. And those people are making victory laps right now. Speaking of Jamar Chase, he's in this matchup, and he goes against the Washington Commandos, which is a juicy matchup, and Malik Neighbors against the Browns. We finally saw Neighbors have a tremendous game, 23 points, 10 catches, 127 yards against that Washington D, who Jamar Chase will go against. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes against the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions have actually shut down outside receivers. Let's pump the brake. No, they have not given up big plays like they did last year. In fact, they are funneling everything to the middle of the field. If that's the case, one would think that McBride and Greg Dortch would feast off of this matchup. I actually am going to go harsh here. Anytime I see Washington Commanders, I'm just going to assume that team's going off. The running back one of the year, Alvin Kamara, and J.K. Dobbins, who is also performing like an RB1, against Javonte Williams and Zach Charbonnet. We're done here. Mark Andrews and Pat Freiermuth heading up 1 and 2 at the tight end spot. Okay. Yeah. I am not trusting anything to do with the Pittsburgh offense. I am thanking God every day that I passed on George Pickens because Arthur Smith is a fantasy cancer. Mark Andrews looked a little bit better than week 1, David, so I'll give you this one. T. Higgins against Washington, I don't think he plays. I think this guy is going to have this might be another lost season. Devin Singletary against Cleveland. You know what? The most boring back that nobody ever wants to own, I think, is Devin Singletary, and he's getting the job done. Tank Dell and Andre Oshabosh. Well, okay. If this is the lineup that is in right now, Andre Oshabosh will not have another 2-touchdown game. Okay. Tank Dell, a guy I was told he was supposed to have a touchdown last week. Here's what I'll say about Tank Dell and the Texans passing attack. So I think a lot of people are anointing Nico Collins like a top 5 receiver in the league, and they're saying that he was the guy to own all along. And right now that is looking like it's true. The issue is that Houston has played 2 teams that run a lot of zone coverage, and Nico Collins is one of the best receivers against zone coverage. Tank Dell excelled against man coverage last year, and now Brian Flores' really confusing scheme is on tap, and they play primarily zone. Now, if this continues to be a trend, Tank Dell is looking like a really hard receiver to trust long term. I keep seeing him in everybody's buy low, buy low, buy low, buy low, buy low. And look, Tank Dell will certainly have a few games this year. But this is like, again, why I think now, obviously, I put my claim on Nico Collins as the guy to own. And I did dip in Stephon Diggs as well. And the only reason why I did both of them is because I thought Diggs would be permanent slot and Nico was the guy to own. I think Tank Dell, can he be a wide receiver 1? That remains to be seen. He's had his few games there. Okay, I'm getting on a tangent here. Well, look, I'm gonna say it right now. If Higgins doesn't play and AJ Brown can't go, David, I'm not gonna tell you what to put in, bud, because I can't do that with Harsh. This is a draw because I really don't like any of these guys. Vegas D, Harsh, your beloved Vegas D is going up against you. Against New England D, I'm taking Vegas. I'm taking Vegas against Andy Dalton. Yeah. Okay. First and foremost, the matchup, they're predicting the King as a 73% favorite. There's not a lot of money coming on the Harsh side, and I agree. Give me David. Our next matchup of the week. A man who returned to the league and got his first victory. Some could argue he should be 2-0 versus a man who is still trying to find his first victory of the season. It's myself at 0-2 versus Big Daddy Mesh at 2-0. Big Daddy Mesh finally gets off the schneid. He gets his first win. One guy who's not off the schneid is myself. Mesh, something's got to give. The matchup is projected at 110 to 102. Let's talk about it. C.J. Stroud versus Lamar Jackson. Well, C.J. Stroud is kind of being a real life amazing. Fantasy, I don't know if this is going to be another upside game for him. It might be a floor game because the Brian Flores defense is looking pretty solid, but they are going to get got at some point. When that some point is, I don't know. I'm hoping it's this week. Lamar Jackson against Dallas. This game scares me a lot, Mesh. I'm not gonna lie to you because this has shootout potential written all over the damn thing. Mesh, I'm gonna go you. Chris Olave and Nico Collins versus Amon-Ra St. Brown and Brandon Ayuk. Your first 2 picks versus my second and third round pick. Nico Collins is performing out of his mind right now. He looks like he is the real deal. Chris Olave is starting to get comfortable, and I like what the Saints offense has been able to do as far as getting guys open. St. Brown had himself a game 11 for 119 on 19 targets. Yeah. If you were worried about him, you shouldn't be. Brandon Ayuk, a guy who is going to have to be relied on, and he just got paid against the team that is really bad against receivers. Mesh, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm terrified of this because I know you had him and Debo. I got to be honest with you, Mesh. I really wish Debo was healthy because I think that would have cannibalized them each other, and I actually think that between our receivers, Mesh, I think St. Brown's a lock, and I think Ayuk is a lock to do good. Nico might be all right. Olave, I'm hoping, is all right, but I'll give the advantage to you. Bijan and Jerome Ford versus Jacobs and Pollard. Jacobs and Pollard go against each other. Pollard's been great. Jacobs has also been pretty good. Jacobs has the tougher matchup for sure. Pollard's got the easiest matchup. Pollard looks like he's got a lot of upside potential in this one. Bijan against Kansas City. Jerome Ford, I don't know what happened in week 2. I am not happy. All right. So what does that mean? It means JJ Swat, baby. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say that, Mesh. Mesh, I like as much as I like Bijan, and I think he'll be okay. Jerome Ford might just his upside might be 10 points, where the other two might have 15-point potential in there. I'm gonna give you the advantage of you. Mesh, this is not reverse jinx. I'm calling it like I see it right now. Where I think I get you is the tight end. I love Trey McBride. Goddard, though, becomes very intriguing without A.J. Brown. Now the flexy, sexy matchup. Xavier, where are they? Stephon Diggs, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Warren. Upside, definitely with me. I think you have the better floor options. Diggs is literally going to be used within the chain markers, and then Xavier Worthy, can he take one to the house? Listen, I can't cower myself out of this. I got to take my side on here. Jalen Warren is going to be continue to mix in with Najee Harris, and then Deontay Johnson against Vegas. He could be a little bit better with Andy Dalton, but we'll see. We'll see. Baltimore at Dallas, Chicago. Listen, Dak is a turnover machine, but I do like Chicago coming into town against Indianapolis Colts. Mesh, I'm just going to do this right now. I've had a long talk with my team, and we've been putting in a lot of effort, but we keep getting beat by guys who are putting up a lot of points, for sure. And with that being said, we really need to step it up. We cannot afford to lose this game, Mesh. We are down 0-2. So we are going to have to bring our best. Because if we don't bring our best, Big Daddy Mesh is going to be 2-1, and I don't want that. Okay? Mesh, listen. Good news is I'm going to go to Wawa tomorrow morning, and I'm probably going to get a salad if they have it, or I might have a sub. Because you guys make really good subs. And I hope that we end off on a positive note right there. Because I don't want to talk anymore about this matchup. We need to be focused on this matchup, and I need to find my inner zen. Heck, I might even go to church. I might even pray. Who knows? But we need to find whatever that thing is. Bang, bang, baby. Go into the next one. Coffey has lost, almost lost 2 people last week, but he lost his favorite receiver, Cooper Kupp. Listen, look, nobody is surprised. That's the risk. Drafting a aging veteran, albeit a really good receiver, but shit happens. And Patrick, I feel your pain being 0-2, buddy. So let's see what can happen. Geno versus Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, I got to take, as much as I said I like the Geno pickup, I got to go Jalen Hurts. Ladd McConkey, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, Michael Pittman Jr. Okay, Michael Pittman Jr., dude, it is so funny because I just want to talk about it because if I am victory lapping one thing, I'm not even taking credit for it, but this was an obvious bust candidate. I do think you got roped into him because it looked like a value. Anthony Richardson cannot support sustainable production at the receiver position. I don't know. The Pittman truthers are out there and they're like shocked. Why? Have you watched Anthony Richardson play? Garrett Wilson has also been a disappointment, though. San Fran was a tough matchup. This is, look. This is Zach Wilson numbers, 9-8, and it's New England this week against Christian Gonzalez. If he doesn't get it done here, I think we can officially anoint, and it pains me to say it, he's not a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football terms. Garrett Wilson better prove me wrong because I would love for him. Listen, I got his jersey too, so I've loved the talent. Back to the Coffey side. Speaking of Ohio State, Jackson Smith and Jigba, now you feel confident starting him, Coffey. And Ladd McConkey. McConkey, if they have to throw the ball, is the only guy who's going to be good. Chargers don't have a real true number one wide receiver. And I don't think they can run the ball very well in this game. But the one thing that they will have is protection, hopefully. Joe Alt versus TJ Watt, if he lines up on that side, should be interesting. JSN looked decent. We'll have to see. I did the breakdown on David's matchup, Coffey. New England played a lot of deep zone, so everything was open underneath. It was literally bend but don't break. Like DK Metcalf and JSN had a lot of catches that were within 10 yards. I think JSN had really one big catch that went overboard and he got really hyped up. There was only one that I saw that kind of like jumped out at me, but everything else was based off of schematics. It's Miami. If Miami keeps it close, my thing is this. If they don't have Kenneth Walker in, I think you can fire up JSN and I think you can fire up Metcalf because they didn't use Lockett until they really needed to. The Lockett thing is this. Lockett might have a good game, but they didn't use him until like fourth quarter and overtime. So we'll see what happens. Breece Hall, you would be starting Dante Foreman. Fucking Coffey. Excuse me. Najee Harris, David Montgomery, but it really doesn't matter. Give me Breece Hall in the Foreman side. Kyle Pitts or Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers by a mile. Kyle Pitts is not it. A-Chain and Rashee Rice versus Cooks and Brian Thomas Jr. Coffee, you know what side I'm going there. Chargers D versus Seattle D. I think it's a wash. I'm not huge on these defensive predictions. Coffee, bottom line is, sorry, Patrick. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough, baby. I can't feel confident in this. Patricia, I'm sorry. Coffee, Josh Downs. You motherfucker. You are literally I've been gifting you a lot of shit in this. You can thank me for Cam Akers, you can thank me for Mr. Downs. So yeah. Coffee, I do think that you need JSN really to, if there's one guy that really needs to step up consistently, it's him. Because the Cooper Kupp injury is going to be hard to overcome, buddy. The last matchup I just recorded looks like it could be a ugly one, and this one could be ugly as far as a blowout concern. Oh my god! I just saw one lineup. This man is not serious, is he? Holy fuck, dude! All right, it's funny because both of these teams were at the bottom of my favorites list. It's Allen and Krier. Krier, we need to have a talk because the moves that you've done the last 2 days make me a Krier believer. I've officially resigned at the David Krier hater club. I've turned in my resignation to that, and I am fully on board. I'm sorry, but you did moves that I absolutely love because your team went from having 30-year-old has-beens in the flex to one guy that I absolutely love this year and the other guy who's actually stepping up. And I wasn't down on the guy. I just think he's back to what he was his rookie year. Patrick Mahomes versus A-Rich. I gotta go Mahomes. A-Rich against a good defense. I don't know how I feel about that. Devontae Adams, Devonta Smith versus Jalen McMillan and Ray McLeod. Krier, I know you want me to give an in-depth take here, but do I really need to go in-depth on this? As much as I don't like Devontae Adams, Devonta Smith I do like without A.J. Brown. He's going to get targeted, and he can play the slot, which means that he's going to have a sustainable floor for fantasy now. And now you have Devontae Adams against a really good defense. Well, hold on. Against a shitty defense versus guys who might get you 7 points. Jonathan Taylor and James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Etienne. If there is one area that is not a slouch for Allen, it's this one. Both Etienne and Gibbs are in good matchups. Taylor and Cook. Taylor is going to be busy, but he's got a tough matchup. Cook, a very easy matchup. As much as I don't like James Cook, him and Alvin Kamara were the two guys that I didn't like a lot this year, and Cook has proven me wrong, and so is Kamara. By the way, who am I picking? I think it's a draw because Taylor will get workload. I don't like the matchup. Gibbs Won't get workload, but I like the matchup. And then ETN and Cook will cancel each other out, but I think Cook has the better advantage. Kittle and Kincaid, I'm going Kittle by a mile here. Without Deebo Samuel, they're going to have to lean on him. Noah, what the fuck? Noah Brown and Tyler Johnson. Dude, I'm gonna be really mad that my loss came against this team. I'm sorry, Alan. I'm really bitter right now. I'm sorry after looking at this. Jerry Judy and Rashid Shaheed. Shaheed has a really good floor in fantasy. With our Shaheed's worst games with our league setup is like 8 points. A dud game for Rashid Shaheed is an 8 point thing. In our league, you might say that he's a floor wide receiver too. Might even be a wide receiver one if he scores touchdowns. And New York versus New York versus New England is good, Alan. I'll give you that. But San Fran against Matt Stafford without an offensive line, and they're coming off of a loss. Okay, Krier. Congratulations on the blowout of the week. I'm not a hater anymore, and if you expected me to hate you on this one, dude, I'm not gonna sugarcoat shit. So yeah, blowout of the week. Krier 147 to Allen 52. Two teams at 1-1 face off against each other. Both have very big roadblocks, but one team was the draft favorite. It was Alex Matika, and I actually had Johnny at number 2, and obviously it's not looking like these guys are 1 and 2 right now. All right, Dak Prescott versus Josh Allen. Give me Josh Allen. CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Waddle with Skylar Thompson throwing him the ball, might I add. Mike Evans and Amari Cooper. Let's pause for a second. This is Alex's side. Mike Evans against Pat Surtain Jr. Mike Evans did not do well against the Detroit Lions last week. The Detroit Lions have 2-game sample size, but they shut down receivers on the outside for 2 weeks. And now he gets Pat Surtain Jr. Listen, Johnny, I'm just going to tell it to you straight. Godwin is a slot guy. Surtain doesn't go in the slot. So this is another Godwin week, unfortunately for you. I don't like Mike Evans. Amari Cooper against the New York Giants. How do we feel about Amari Cooper against the New York Giants? Something's got to give. I mean, he's been dropping a lot of passes. Amari Cooper should have had 2 touchdowns in week 1 and week 2, but it's not even Watson's fault. It's literally Amari Cooper's fault. He's dropped like 2 gimmies. Kyren against San Fran, Stevenson against the Jets. Let's talk about that because the Jets' run defense has been really bad this year, and I think Stevenson could be solid. Williams against San Fran, it's going to be your classic 17 carries for Kyren, 68 yards, but I don't think he finds pay dirt in this one. Joe Mixon or awesome Eckler. Okay. Eckler has a floor of 8 because of return yards, but he's not going to get touchdowns. Joe Mixon. If Joe Mixon plays, I like him, but I don't know. And he's kind of bitter out of that hip drop tackle. Laporta, who was the easiest fade in the world, or Mike Gesicki. I still got to go Laporta. Pickens against the Chargers. Robinson versus Ridley and Shakir. The real one guy I regret was going the wrong commander. I took McLaurin, but Robinson looks like the real deal. Pickens has a solid matchup yet again, but it's Arthur Smith. Solid matchup means, okay, we're going to throw. He's going to get 4 catches. Does it go for a touchdown? No. Calvin Ridley against Green Bay. They did some interesting things with him, and they're treating him like he's the alpha of the team. So I'll actually, you know what? I'll go Jay here. Ridley and Shakir are part of their offense. Oh, Robinson's floor is scary, though. I changed it. Sorry, Jay. I think Ridley and Robinson are pieces you can feel confident about. But I don't know about Georgette Pickens. Thank God I faded George Pickens this year. Now watch. 2 touchdown game. Fuck you, Nikki. Dallas against Baltimore or Cleveland against the Giants. Cleveland against the Giants. All right. Excuse me. I'm going to put I'm going to put my claim right here. Mixon has to play. Mixon doesn't play, the game's over. There's no way Bucky Irving and Austin Eckler can carry the load for Johnny. So you need Mixon to play, and then I think it gets interesting. But I got to go Alex, man. Jay, I think the injury bug has really dug in deep. Johnny, your key to victory, you need both Evans and Cooper to score. You need Eckler and Mixon to hit their floors, so that means double digits for both. And then your flexes need to, I don't think they need both double digits, but they need to come close. I think Shakir's got a floor at like 8. This is another floor EJ team. But the bottom line is Evans and Cooper need to deliver, because if they don't, say what you want about Kyron, say what you want about Stevenson, but they're going to get volume. Now, Ramondre Stevenson, oh shit, he really had a good game. Oh my God. League winner? Wow. Okay. I missed this. This is 2 straight games in a row, and the Jets D has not been very good. Stevenson's actually pretty solid. Ooh. I'm sorry. This changes my stance a lot. This is clear Alex here. I did not know that Stevenson had a high floor. And so did fucking Brian Robinson. Okay. This team is looking like the team. Never mind. Why did I think that Stevenson didn't have a... Okay. Yeah. I got to go Alex here. I think the floor and upside is better with Alex than it is with Johnny. And that's kind of what it comes down to. I think you need Evans and Cooper to deliver, and I don't know if that's going to happen. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the matchup of the week. One team at 2-0 versus a team that should be 2-0. That's right, Paul. Here we go. Andre Jones, on the ground Kings versus the LSU boys. Clearly, Paul has not decided on a last flex. See how it goes. Brock Purdy versus Joe Burrow. Okay. Paul, I'm going to flat out tell you this right now. I look at Brock Purdy, and I look at the matchup they have with the Rams. The Rams are the matchup that I think people in the fantasy industry predicted it would be last year. Last year, they were like, they don't have anybody on defense. They just might get picked apart, and they might be the defense you attack week in and week out. And then they were surprisingly content. They weren't bad. After seeing what Marvin Harrison Jr. did and Kyler Murray dropped 41 points on them, this is what we thought the Rams defense would be last year, which is utter dog shit. And I think that Purdy will have a great game. But Burrow gets the Commanders. You are very lucky he gets the Commanders, because I think Purdy might have Andre's first 30-point game, but I think that Joe Burrow will match that. I think Joe Burrow will match that, clearly. Did you hear what I said? Yeah. Okay. So, because of that, I'm going to draw. I'm not leaning Burrow, even though I love the matchup, Paul. I'm very confident that Purdy has a good game. Tyreek Hill and Chris Godwin versus Justin Jefferson and DJ Moore. So I don't think Tyreek Hill gets a significant downgrade. Godwin's been unstoppable. Jefferson is fine, Paul. You don't got to worry about JJ. DJ Moore, we have a start to have a discussion, because he's been pretty bad. And it might be a Caleb Williams thing, because he's been targeted 8 times and then 10 times. Keenan Allen is probably not going to play again. And then Roma Dunze is just, I don't know if it was a decoy thing or what, but he's not commanding targets right now. This should be a good matchup, but I think looking at Caleb Williams, his timing is really off. And I think he's getting adjusted to the NFL speed, because the one thing why I loved Houston defense last week is that Caleb Williams is still thinking that he can hit that over the top play like he did in USC, and then the pass rush just comes in and eats him alive. The Colts have a good pass rush. However, the Colts are down to Forrest Buckner, and that is their best guy, and they couldn't really get to Malik Willis, but that's also because they just ran the ball the whole game. Bottom line is this: if Keenan Allen's out, he's going to command targets. If DJ Moore can't do it with that target share, it just means that Caleb Williams' timing is off. But the timing is not off with Baker and Godwin, and Tyreek Hill will be fine, so I'm going Andre. Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon versus Barkley and James Conner. Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, Paul, I can tell you I like Barkley, and I can tell you how much I like James Conner. The only issue is both of them are in really bad matchups. Yeah. One thing you can say about the Saints is that their run D is disgusting. And I think last year was either last year or 2 years was the first 100-yard rusher they've given up in like an insane stat, if you remember that, Paul. I can't remember if it was last year, and I don't even recall the running back who did it. Was it Brian Robinson? Like, I don't even remember who it was, but I remember hearing that. That's why I was so big on the Saints, is that they shut down the run. James Conner against Detroit, another bad defense to go against. Conner I love. Barkley I love. These matchups, we got to temper expectations, kid. Derrick Henry, you know how I feel about him. And then Jordan Mason against the Rams will probably outscore all these guys, so I got to go Andre. Jake Ferguson might be back. Travis Kelce, Paul, we have to have another conversation here, bud. If Kelce does not get it done this week, when they clearly are down Isaiah Pacheco, and there's a bunch of running backs that we don't even know if they know how to play football. Well, one. If you don't get it done here, push the panic button, bro. He might be cooked. He might be cooked. They have to use him in a game that they have to. Well, actually, they're 2-0, but the passing attack can't just rely on Rashee Rice. People need to step up, and I think they have to lean on Travis Kelce. Aaron Jones and Jamison Williams against Arizona. That's a good matchup. Aaron Jones against Houston. Okay. Houston's been. I think they're middle of the pack against the run. I don't think it's a great matchup. Jonathan Taylor had 60 and a touch, and then the Bears don't have a real running back because they use DeAndre Swift. So Aaron Jones will be good. Jamison Williams, will he do? Listen here, guys. Whoop. Jamison Williams has officially had 2 double-digit games. He actually might be what everybody thought he was going to be. Yeah, this might be a good pick. Zay Flowers and empty. Well, we know why it's empty. Just look at what's on the bench. For Christian Kirk. He might be cooked. Maybe. I don't know. He's the guy on the most out of all the receivers who have started out slow. DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, Terry McLaurin, just to name a few. Tank Dell, like guys that were going in that round 4 to 7 range. He is the one I generally have a lot of concern with, because if you're a slot receiver, you're supposed to have a good floor, and he's not even hitting that. Yeah. He's the guy I'm the most concerned with. Let's look back here. I got to go Jones and Williams. Zay Flowers, Paul, will be okay. Tampa D or Pittsburgh D. Pittsburgh D is hard to bet against. But Tampa D against Bo Nix. Paul, I'm sorry. You saw what your Pittsburgh D did. Imagine what Todd Bowles' blitz packages are going to do. Paul, I'm sorry to say this, buddy. I think you got some decent matchups, but the running backs, I can't feel confident about. Look at the Andre matchups. Godwin is in a mouth-watering matchup because he is going to avoid Pat Surtain. Jordan Mason's in a good matchup. Derrick Henry's in a good matchup. Aaron Jones should be in an okay matchup. Jamison Williams in a decent matchup. Tampa Bay against Denver. Look, Paul, I hate to say it, buddy. I hate to say it, but I got to go with Andre going to 3-0 here. Andre Jones looks like he's in a decent matchup, baby. Yo, yeah. Sorry, I was reading my inbox. But yeah, I got to go Andre.